our protocol was our primary source of revenue, and we had like a fee baked into the protocol that like we were charging 2% fees or something, and it was baked in the smart contract. Someone could just like take our open source smart contract, deploy it, and then change that fee to be 0, for example. And even in that situation, like think about the amount of people that are going to be using this. If 1 out of every 20 forks the Keepon protocol, makes changes as a Rust developer, understands needs to dig into the code to see where the fees are, understand how to change it, turn it off, and like integrate it back into their own app. Again, I don't really care.
A lot of people, I think, underestimate how much work that really is and how much you really have to execute on some of this stuff for it to really be meaningful. One of the things that comes to mind here with all of this AI stuff, right, is like reliability of the AI itself. How are you guys approaching that? Like I saw, like we showed you the transaction before it did it, didn't just like execute on its own. But what are other mechanisms you guys are thinking about to, protect against that?
Yeah. So just kind of like when you go into an exchanges and you put in a sloppy number and then something pops up and says, "Hey, you idiot, why are you?" Or if something's over, let's say $25 or something, we can start putting safeguards into the system that basically says, "Are you sure this looks like a pretty intense thing you're trying to do?" Also on the roadmap is starting to build the fraud protection mechanisms. And then when we start importing other AI agents, that's when we're really going to have to dig deep in making sure that it's not doing anything that you don't want. Like let's do a swap, and then the reality is the transaction that gets built sends half of your funds to someone else. So if you go into Mintbase and you make a transaction, you can drill into all of what you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. You show what functions you're calling on what contract, how much of each different piece you're doing. We also built an AI agent that explains with human readable text what the transaction is that you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. So it's weird to say that AI fixes everything, but it kind of is. And we know things could get tricky if we get too far ahead of ourselves.
So we believe to stop marketing, start engaging. That's what we're doing over at DevHub. Is that now the focus is no longer just about let's sell you something on why Near is the best developer experience, which it is, right? We all know it. That's why we're here. But we want to actually start to engage you as a user and better understand what do you need and how do we help you be successful instead of us trying to put our product to you.
Hey everybody, we are live again here at DevHub. I am your host, Joe. I'm going to be with you all hour. We have another exciting episode coming up. We have Roman from Reclaim Protocol coming on, and we have a new co-host for this episode, Owen from DevHub, who's one of our awesome DevRels. So this is going to be a really exciting episode. We have tons of stuff to go over. And one of the big things about Reclaim Protocol coming on is not just because they recently integrated with Near, but they've also actually received one of the grants through DevHub too. So just to show how all that works in action together. So without further ado, let's get them both on stage here and get into it. Roman, Owen, how's it going, guys?
Hey everyone.
What's up? How's it going?
Happy to be here. Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you, and thanks for coming on. It's I know you guys have been doing a lot and working with a lot of different protocols and stuff like that, but you recently have come to Near and started doing work on Near here. Can you talk a little bit about like what Reclaim is first, and then we can kind of get into more of the integration stuff.
Yeah, sure. So Reclaim protocol is basically, in a broad strokes, is a tool for data, like self-governance of data. So our goal is to allow every user to be able to manage their personal data of any kind. Basically, if you can imagine yourself as some sort of a digital entity, you will have millions of digital footprints you leave around as your viewing patterns on YouTube, or deliveries in Uber, or your rides, or a million different things. So right now, access to those things is basically barred. Situation became a little better in the past 5 to 10 years with all new legislations coming in developed economies. So like GDPR or California Digital Act, they're trying to find a footstep to protect people, to allow them to manage their data. That's why you can order a dump of your of all the information from Twitter or from Facebook. But to be honest, it's not a lot of use because it's very unstructured data. It's just like a text archive with everything. So you as a regular user, you have no tools to operate it. And since you don't have tools, there are no products utilizing this data. And we believe it's very valuable because the data is a new oil of this like digital generation. So we wanted and we built a tool which ultimately allows people to manage their own data. Of course, if we're getting closer to exact details, right now we are building some connections ourselves. So we're trying to find great use cases. We're trying to help developers. And since the Web3 and crypto is our home base of operations, of course, networks and specifically Near was one of the first ones we decided to go to provide any not only Web2 data but any data as a zk proof. I think it might be very useful in many ways.
For sure. Can you talk a little bit more about like some of this data that's actually becoming available? Because I think one thing that I commonly hear just in my own experience is that like there's this hard division between like Web3 data and then like Web2 data.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you guys are saying that like we need to be able to integrate both, and so you're leading that way.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. So when I came into space a few years ago, I saw a very different narrative for the space. Everyone was crypto maxi, so like abandon all the old things, burn them down, and build everything anew on top of the ashes, right? But in reality, and we saw that during the bear market, it's not possible. Web3 is a continuation of Web2, not a completely new construct. So we believe that it's super important to build this bridge, and this data work will definitely gonna be this bridge. In terms of which data exactly is available, that's the most mind-blowing thing. It's basically any data you see as a user in any web interface. So would it be your deliveries or your banking balance or your professional credentials or ownership of a certain NFT, if you can see it on a website, is now available not only on chain but with web, like this Web2 data source. Yeah, and I absolutely believe that both Web3 data and Web2 should be combined. I was working in analytics for a long time, and I see it as a very well-rounded approach to research your wallet data and matching it with classical analytics tools, which are available on all across the web.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you guys are almost like this middleman, but that middleman's fully programmable. So it's up to me as the developer and product owner to say, let's say I want this data from deliveries, and I can then make that connection, but then make it we'll call it like Web3 safe. Is that a good way?
Yeah, that's
maybe like
well, safe is
yeah,
it's already taken, but yeah, that's a very
Web3
right way
appropriate.
to think about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're planning it, and we're building it as an open source tool. So it's already operating. You have a creative platform. So exactly as you described, if you have any ideas of what you might need from user data, you go there and you build this connector. In most cases, it takes around 30 minutes to make it from scratch, and it's even available for non-tech people. It's pretty easy also thing. Yeah, but the reason why we planned it as an open source is much bigger, because we're not using any APIs. So basically, we're working on top of the TLS protocol, and this partial data disclosure allows us to mark down the page and basically understand where the data we need coming from. So that isn't, it's an incredible competitive advantage, right? Like, we don't have to ask for permissions from the website. We need only a permission, like a direct permission from the user, and he's managing his data. But on the other hand, if the website, it's one of the most frequently asked questions, what happens when the web page changes? The changes should apply to the data provider as well. It should be renewed, remade. Absolutely uncontrollable for the team of, let's say, 100 people. If potentially we will have 1,000 providers, 100 providers of different types for Facebook, 50 providers for Twitter, measuring likes or interaction, like personal interactions in DMs. That's something possible with Reclaim. We feel those people, they will maintain and use their own personal providers. On top of that, acting as a sort of a marketplace of data solutions. So probably, most likely, they will be able to somehow monetize it, not tying it completely exactly to the on-chain, usage.
I think in the past, on-chain data, getting data on-chain from off-chain, most of it's been done through oracles, right? So how do you guys sort of compare to a traditional oracle system?
We have, like, as it's a great segue from us not needing the APIs. So that's the biggest improvement in terms of ease of getting the data for the whole zk-TLS space. We're not the only player, but I believe technically we are very, very far away from all other solutions, both in usability and like readiness of the market. So everything is sorry, my screen is blinking because of the lights. Sunset in Lisbon, very beautiful. Yeah, so as I was telling, the biggest upside is that you can build a provider from any website. The downside is that there are certain technical, let's say, exclusions, like rare, like edge cases, when they use some sort of their own cryptography, or when the page is dynamic or stuff like that. So, but we believe firmly that it's a scalable approach, and like right now we have a few projects in the pipelines that gonna use a lot of those providers, and we're seeing how it might be implemented. Right now, it's made inside of the team, but I believe we will be able to provide great tutorials and instructions for that type of projects for everyone who wants to develop on Reclaim product.
Yeah, I've actually been in touch with you guys on a more like personal level, because I'm building a project called Vex, and we're looking to see how we can maybe use Reclaim protocol to bring esports data on chain. So I'm interested to continue the conversation there.
Surprisingly, Web3 gaming was a potentially big market, because like we have a lot of interest coming from gaming. It's an enormous Web2 industry with a lot of data, a lot of personal data, and your, let's say, gaming net worth is basically your number of hours played in a certain game, or your skills represented by a certain rating on a website. So we'll already have a few cases when we use that data in helping our partners to pass that into their product and potentially Web3.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the concept of like a marketplace a little bit, so that I think that's really interesting because, like, as you mentioned, like data is really becoming this like hot commodity. I think with the AI stuff, and I think just in general, a lot of the things that are happening in Web3, you're really seeing is like it's all just data driven. So is that for you guys? Well, you guys don't want to build all these API connections because that's a lot to host all of the time. Is that marketplace though I guess the long-term vision of like where you really drive the protocol, or has that become like almost a separate thing, like the business of Reclaim and then the protocol stays its own thing?
It's a really good question. I wouldn't say that this is a very, very fresh idea, right? Like to give people the right to sell their data. I believe like multiple Web2 companies tried to do exactly that. So
Right.
you're filling like some questionnaires and getting like $5 out of it. So
it tends to be them selling your data though instead.
Yeah. So there were like startups trying to make some brokerage, to make it more fair for you as a user. So you are deciding, are you selling it or not? Of course, in all other cases, the whole, lifeblood of digital, I'm coming from Web2 marketing. So I know that almost like every cent earned there is coming from reselling user, to advertiser. And to do that, they know crazy details about your life. I would say that probably companies like Meta and Google, they know more about you than you probably might know about yourself based on those digital footprints we discussed. But with the self-serve tool, with an ability to really govern your data. So let's say instead of selling your profile one time to a certain company for $5, you will have this wallet of hundreds of verifications, different proofs of absolutely different aspects of your life. And for those purposes, for different companies, it might be applicable, for some not. And you mentioned AI and ML and Web3, a very big use case as well. So maybe it's gonna be, a method to crowdsource the data sets. Very clear data sets without any disturbances coming from real people, because they sort of evaluated themselves, and it's exactly what you want. So it's very interesting. We're just entering this era where like past initial AI craze, but I feel a lot of new updates will be there in the coming 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, really. I mean, I think it's a really interesting question, period. Like, never mind like the integration to Web3, like you said, just like how does this data all get handled? Is it though a concern where, and maybe this isn't something that you guys are worried about because you're trying to be also a protocol of like, let's say I build an integration to something like Twitter, and so is that something where you say like you want to form a partnership with Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, to have that data, or are you simply saying like, look, we'll help you provide this integration to pull data that like sits on top of that API that's already there, or like how does it all kind of fit? Do you get what I'm getting at? Like I'm trying how that all fits together.
It's the latter. So basically, as a Reclaim protocol, we're trying to provide our technology provide access to extract certain data. So our goal is to maintain it to be as as fast, as fail safe as possible. And then like I don't even I can't even imagine all the use cases. So it would be absolutely insane to try to guess what can be built. So we started with a list of like primitives, a basic list of most popular services like Uber, Binance, everyone uses, but it grew out of control. The list became so big so fast. So we're not even trying to guess at this point.
But
what would you
like
say?
That, oh, go ahead, Ron. Yeah.
What would you say you said you can't guess the amount of use cases, right? But what would you say your favorite possible use cases are? Like, what are you most excited to see?
It's a great question. I have two actually, one for Web3 and one for Web2. For Web3, it's pretty obvious. It's like Sybil resistance. So same concept as Passport, but it's based not on your on-chain merits, because I think everyone saw the latest debacle about layer 0 airdrop, right? Like how they judge on who's Sybil, who's not. Like, is it a real person? And what if he holds like 50 wallets? Should we pay him? So, and it's all based on on interactions on chain. So they're looking for patterns. In our case, all those services you use as a real person, you can just transport the value of money you spend there. So let's say you have Spotify, you pay $15 each month. You have some Uber rides each month from $30 to $50. It's already like $50. Add some groceries ordered online, or volumes on Binance or something like that. Then you attach the monetary value to all of that. You combine it, and you will have a score of so-called, it's a well-known concept, proof of forgery. So it will be absolutely impossible to penetrate from the Sybil side, because the cost of forgery gonna be so high. It's just impossible to spend those amounts with the outcome of airdrops we're seeing right now. So I think it's like 100% fail-proof, because users keep their their privacy with themselves, because they're not actually associating their personal data with themselves. It's just like a wallet with a bunch of badges, and it might be invisible as well. We'll see. The meta for for acquiring users is transforming. So I feel a lot of people starting to understand that it's better to have like 500 real users, like a tight-knitted community, rather than hundreds of thousands of bots just liking everything and asking about the airdrop in the comments. For Web 2, it might be even. I really enjoy this use case. Hope to see it implemented soon enough. So basically, Reclaim allows to do vampire attacks for marketing. As we discussed, all the performance advertising, basically you buying the ads on Facebook or Google using sets of personal data. They either have them inside and you give them enough money so they can find your audience, or you're providing them with some prerequisites, right? Like you already know your cohorts, like their emails or a region or their like level of salary, whatever. Right. So for e-commerce, it's quite a unique case, because imagine you're an online drugstore. So you're acquiring new users, you're constantly growing, you got a new round of investment, and besides doing organic acquisition, you are buying a lot of traffic. So, and it's a vicious cycle. The problem with buying traffic, you can't stop. So you're either like completely stopping it and losing some time restarting it, or you constantly scaling budget. The problem with that is you don't know the quality of the people who are coming to a platform, because you just see registrations, you see initial orders, but you don't have any vision in terms of their lifeline of 6 to 12 to 2 years. You will get like honest results only when the time comes, and you might see that all of those who are bots, which is a big case with let's say mobile application installations, because it's quite easy to imitate the real users. You're installing the app, you're tapping in, you're opening transaction windows, you're closing in. Maybe you even do like a few purchases from the whole farm. So when analytics are trying to look into your specific traffic, they see that it's not the best, but it's normal, and they are scaling up your budget. What Reclaim allows is that service can provide a discount or some bonus to newcomers or to all users as well. That way, they will like click a button and they will be requested to connect some other e-commerce services, like Amazon, let's say, the biggest one, or their direct competitors. The chances that this person makes his first purchase online are not that big, right? So probably there are some historical information coming from Amazon. You will see what type of products the person is buying, the sizes, the frequency. There is a lot of data in this like purchase feed. And on top of that, it validates the acquisition channel, because bots can't connect their history. And you know that that you have like a organic traffic acquisition. So let's say 1 million people coming to your platform, new users every month, and let's say 3% of them are using this bonus feature to connect their accounts, and you get data out of them. If you're seeing that out of this cohort of acquired traffic, only let's say 0.5% doing that, something probably is not right. So it give a very nice baseline for a lot of things in e-commerce. I like how sort of ubiquitous this use case might be.
Really interesting. I think the piece that I think people often forget is that like the biggest way to dissuade a lot of especially like the civil attacks really is purely financial. Like it's simply where like it's a numbers game for these groups, and if they feel like that they can outdo it, so by pulling in that other thing, it's a very interesting approach.
Yeah,
When
the problem with on-chain is that like you're constantly forced to move weights. You need
right,
to carefully apply how much money you like people stake, or like how many transactions, what the time difference should be. But it's like a arm race, right? Like when those farmers, they acquire the information about how much should exactly be staked, you're forced to move the weights again.
yeah,
I'm
really
wondering, sorry, with these, you said like badges are tied to a wallet that are maybe representing like identity or something. Um, how are these like badges being stored? Are they like sort of fungible token, non-fungible tokens, or soul-bound tokens? This sort of thing.
That's a great question. So it was a part of the initial conversation. What exactly we want to have as a end result of proof creation, right? So we started with Reclaim Wallet, which is not longer operational. So it's a small spoiler to what conclusion we arrived to. It holded like all of your badges, but we decided to go more over to the open source, like technology provider, infrastructure provider. That was one of the reasons we're implementing with chains, with Near specifically, just to build this initial channel, right? So people like in the Near ecosystem, all the developers, they now can use Reclaim Tech to put those badges in any form they want. Would it be on chain? Would it be an NFT? So I know you have like a beautiful mint base NFT marketplace. Maybe that's something we can build with them. Or let's say you have Sweat, where definitely you can transfer your physical activities from different applications and sources, right? So I'm not sure that ultimately putting everything on chain is a good idea, especially when it comes to very personal sensitive data, even with ZK proofs, right? Because you generally don't want to keep those things online. But for some things, for number of games you played or some other bragging rights you have, you might want to make it into an NFT or make a dynamic NFT, for instance.
Interesting. And I wonder with one of the big narratives with Near at the moment is the idea of chain abstraction. And as part of chain abstraction, we have this product, chain signatures. So I wonder if this information that's being uploaded to Near when you're actually getting it on the chain, whether you could use the chain signatures sort of together to broadcast this information to like every single chain, because currently you can send transactions to any ECDSA based chain, so like Ethereum and whatever. Do you see any use case there?
I hope that would be a use case. I'm a big, supporter of chain abstraction and unifying the whole space. So I see a future quite modular when we use one chain for one thing, for financial transaction, the other as a storage, the third one as a loyalty layer, etc. So it's really important to be more user friendly. So that's definitely like a huge step into this direction, because people like regular users, they don't care about what chain is powering their experience, and ideally they don't even know it's a blockchain. Look at, the biggest case of the last few years was Reddit. I bet like it's so popular, but I bet not a lot of people on Reddit knows that Polygon, powers their NFT experience. So I hope that definitely like all the proofs gonna be transferable. Yeah, but it's still a developing narrative, so we will actually need to look into it. I will speak with our engineering team to learn more about that, because it's potentially might be important for all other developments as well.
One thing I think might be good to clarify, and even for myself, is just a little bit of like, so there's no like when you say like there's these different connections, and I'm, let's say like I'm pulling in data, let's say from Spotify, use that example. Who has access to it at any particular moment? Is it simply just the call that was made at the time? Like, is it just in time, or is it something where some of the stuff is actually being stored in some way?
That's a really important question, because ZK proofs, privacy, personal data, Web3 narratives. Right now, the only entity that sees the data besides you is the validator. So it's like a validator that validates the origin of the information. So the website, it checks that it's really, let's say, Facebook, and the data itself, that it wasn't tampered with on your side, on your device, or during this transition period. So basically TLS cover all the security here, but this validator sees, let's say, your name or just a bunch of numbers. If it's a banking balance, right? It doesn't know what exactly validates and from who it's coming. So besides that, it's completely yours. It's kept on your device in a form of ZK proof. And of course, building all those products, it basically applies that you are transferring your data to the requester. So we're building those bridges as well. But in most cases, it's very it's highlighted that basically what's going to happen. And one thing I love, it's like a natural prerequisite for the whole flow, that the person needs to log in the same portal himself. So I think that builds sort of a certain level of trust, because first of all, you're making completely sure a person understands what type of data he can sort of share with people, and then it's basically like a hard consent, like a required action to do that. It requires some time and will to do that. So we're absolutely sure that the person is motivated enough to.
So me as the developer, let's say, so I set a particular threshold, maybe of like what I expect to learn from the data. So not maybe actual, I'm not getting like a JSON set of data from something, right? I'm just getting a result of based off of some logic, or am I getting the actual data set?
It depends on your needs. So we basically have two layers. The first layer is Web2 layer, and in this layer, the form, the structure of information you're getting might be, whatever you want. So it's discussable. In terms of how user sees that data in like our ecosystem, is just like informational cards. When you see a macros for the data which will be put, like a name, street address, etc., etc. And on the product side, it's completely up to them how to display this data, or not to display it at all completely. Just, as in this case with Amazon and like vampire attacks on ecom, you can just keep it on yourself and show the green check mark that everything is good.
I gotcha. So the power still lays with the end user of how. So even as a developer, I make so let's say I'm a malicious developer. I'm actually just trying to harvest data. If I do that using your protocol, the end user still can see like, oh, hey, this developer is trying to grab all of this, and I'll be able to improve it.
Yeah, the user will see the source of data, even if he is misinformed about the purpose of it. He might have second thoughts, and of course, I think this protection from bad actors is going to be a huge thing when the technology is a little bit more in use, when it's more popular and people are more familiar with it.
Sure.
Sure.
And with TLS, right? You say you have this node validating that it's actually the correct information, right?
Yeah.
Are you able to go into at all how that works? And is it like just one node validating, or is there a
Oh,
network of these?
yeah, a really good question as well. So right now it's our central validator, like Reclaim validator. So it's in-house. It's not very good in a narrative decentralization because it's definitely centralized. And though we're not keeping any data, like we're keeping track on how many proofs were produced, just to know what's going on. Potentially closer to the end of the year, I think we will release the network for external validators, making it absolutely decentralized. A lot of things, a lot of work to put into it because there should be like a lot of security mechanisms and like honeypots, because people might have an idea to lie, let's say, to Reclaim, because they will validate the data which is broken. So
Sure.
a lot of work on security side there. And yeah, we believe it's gonna be a well-working construct with dozens, if not 100, information validators, and they're gonna be basically charging for validations, and they are probably their value. So we are thinking about attaching a certain value to different proofs, because let's say your number of followers in Twitter is much less sensitive information than your banking balance, and it should be, it should be visible for the system. It should be accounted to. Yeah.
It's almost like
Let me know when you launch that network. I've
Yeah,
always
sure.
wanted to get into the like a validator game early when the seat price isn't too high.
Yeah, I will let you know. Definitely.
Is that though this mechanism? And so to give like I guess some additional context, so last week we just talked to the Graph protocol, and Graph has been something that has been somewhat centralized for a few years now, and they just recently moved to a decentralized more manner, but they've always had a token that was part of some of this stuff too. For you guys, is this where though, like I guess the power of Web3 starts to come into play, that you can actually start to set up a system that is economically feasible without you having to be the central authority?
Exactly. Yeah. With the token, it's a hard, like a hard theme. It's very complex. So from my experience, I would say like absolutely most projects, they have token just to have a token.
Sure.
So to pull some money in, it's not really participating in any decision making. And if it is, usually you have a whale on call, so you can
Right.
call him and ask to drop all his weight into this particular question you're interested in.
Yeah.
With Reclaim, since it's a very transparent transactional thing we're doing, so you have a certain number of proofs happening, projects alive, and they have, like, let's say one project has 1,000 proof, the other has 10, but it's very important, like expensive proofs. So I believe it would be possible to make it as a self-regulated mechanism, sort of a real DAO with an economic layer to it, with a real value to our tokens. Yeah, hopefully we'll see it before the end of the year.
Cool. Does that though put some onus on you guys as the creator of the protocol to kind of censor is not the right word here, but like be able to do some light moderating of like what kind of data sources are actually coming through the system? Or do you say at that point, look, at the goal is to be fully decentralized, to power the people, and we'll let anything through? Because I could see a scenario where you run the risk of like having some inappropriate data sets that are coming into the system that maybe don't fit to the ethos of, again, privacy or things like that.
It's a double-edged sword. So we're still discussing that, a really important issue, because as you mentioned, like, there are not only downside to the decentralization, there are upside to centralization. So let's say for the Sybil resistance case, right? The more data you centralizedly collect, basically you will be able to cut out those people in all future airdrops before they even join. But for that, you need like sort of an overview of all users on some level which are in the system, making the system centralized. I believe like the general direction gonna be the full decentralization. Like definitely some form of moderation, some rules there will apply, because we want to have this this door open for us, because it's very serious topic, like sensitive data. A lot of things might potentially go, if not wrong, they can go in a very unexpected way. So we definitely want to have a say and like control over the overall narrative of the product. But we'll see. It's Web 3. So.
Yeah. Would you see the DAO sort of moderating that? Because I feel like that's how you sort of have some sort of centralization, but decentralized decision making with a DAO, with making these.
DAO feels very, very appropriate. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, I want to bring up. Let's actually pull your site up a little bit. Maybe just kind of show people kind of how you get started and kind of walk through it a little bit, because I think there's a couple things here that I noticed right off the bat. Like one, you guys have some really great. If people really want to nerd out and like dive into like the white paper and stuff, it's all right there, which is nice. I don't have to search for it. But definitely, I think you guys are introducing some really interesting topics here that we've kind of hit on a little bit already, but maybe this might help a little bit here. Is, one of the things that came up when I first was looking at it was like, you guys are making the claim that pretty much, right, any, web data can be verifiable.
Yeah.
For that to start to happen, one thing that comes to mind is like, what is the incentive on the other side of it for like an Uber to provide access to this? Are they being paid? Like, is there a financial piece of that, or is it something simply like, hey, we want to be able to provide more access to what we're doing? Like, where's the relationship with that?
We don't have direct relationship with all said companies, so we don't build any connections. We're not asking for permission. Basically, our technology allows the user to decide where he wants to, grab his data from. That comes, the downside of that some companies might not be happy with losing important data. But on the other hand, most likely, if they're not happy, that means that some of their competitors using this data, as I mentioned in the ecom example, and in this case, most likely they want to have the same functionality, or it becomes sort of a race. They're changing, their setup. We're changing the provider. If it's a really important provider, if they're, if Uber for some reason decides to fight this and allocate like a few people who are gonna constantly change the code of the page, that means it's something really important, right? So there is an upside for a person who will constantly update the provider.
So you're not even needing to acquire like an API to get the Uber data. How is it actually grabbing the data then?
We know where the data is kept. So the only prerequisite, you need to create this provider beforehand, and you need to have access to the said information. So you know that your number of rights is kept on your profile number. So you need to log in a web version of Uber, open your profile, and voila, you have the provider built.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's actually how you really.
Yeah, you can.
Go on.
You can click like get started, and we can take a quick look on what's start building. Yeah, sorry, on what's going on inside. If you can log in with your Google account.
I think that's like not needing to have an API or whatever. I feel like this is how you really scale it and be able to grab any data.
Yeah. As I said, I feel right now we have a lot of information you don't really own, so it's not non-extractable. Yeah, if you click new application, you will see the whole list of providers we have right now. a lot of experimental one, not all of them stable, disclaimer, but you can see just the sheer number of use cases because people are just creating it. We have KYC levels on different centralized platforms. We have all kinds of ride sharing and deliveries available. Amazon, I mentioned. We are working with some universities to prove that you're a student, for instance, right? Or we even have like some national providers, which allowing you to prove that you are a citizen of a certain. Like,
how long is this list?
It's around 160 providers, and it's constantly growing. There are like a lot of private ones. We're playing it since it's like an early middle alpha. We're not very very good with upkeep because we're building it much faster than we're doing our quality control. But it just represents the sheer ease of the creation process. So during the Dev Connect last November, I believe, it was November, we had this tool in alpha version, like in a closed state. So we went around the conference, we found a bunch of people, tell them about the product, and we told them, hey, do you want to build something right now, like in those 10, 15 minutes? And a lot of people were actually, were able, being non-technical, like managers and community guys, were able to build different cool things. So that's fun.
Really, I mean, when you see it like this, and it definitely is making more sense now of where you start to see the potential of it. So I think what I like, two parts come to mind right away is like, as a developer, it simplifies my thought process of like, oh, okay, I want this particular object, I can go get it here. But secondarily, as an end user, like I like the fact that I'm not like just linking my whole account to something.
Yeah.
Like that's so common nowadays where like I sign up for something and it's like, link your Twitter and it's like you're giving away all these different permissions. Where here it's like, no, like we're just gonna pull your username, prove that you own that username, and that's it. And it's like, oh, okay, I got it. Like that's really an interesting approach to this.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to enter an airdrop yesterday, but it looked a little bit suspicious, so I didn't want to connect my my Twitter to it.
Yeah.
Maybe they should have been using Reclaim instead.
I hope so. People who care about the aliveness of their audience, they will eventually use something like that, I believe. There are a few solutions, going in the same direction. And for the last 6 months, I'm seeing a great shift in terms of all the operations around the airdrops and reward programs. So, and yeah, there are some providers you can build yourself. They will be visible here as well. if you opt in for to making it public, you can keep them private as well.
Interesting. Yeah, the private thing is a really interesting part of that too. And so as a developer, if I start building with this, I guess all these different connections of now how this works. So where does the chain piece come in? Like, so like why build onto integrate with Near? Like where does that all fit into this?
It's like basically all chain integration. It's a second level of integration. At first, you're building this pipeline of data. You're deciding you're becoming the data controller. So at the end, user sends it to you if you're not planned it otherwise. Why all the chains? So basically, we're coming to the Near community, and you already have a lot of cool live products with live audience, Sweatcoin and Mintbase, and like some gaming stuff, and AI is coming into play, right? So they're already on Near. The whole ecosystem, the whole like infrastructure is around Near. So if they need a on-chain component, they will just take it from the Reclaim library and use it to to push stuff to the Near chain. But on the other hand, like if you don't need to, if you don't need to publish this data on chain, you don't do that. You just keep it with yourself. But on chain is definitely like a massively important for all the proofs in regards of AI and everything, like the big data. Oh, that's a bad one. I have to report it.
Good stuff. So yeah, so you have some documentation here. It looks like so your SDKs that are for on the Web 2 side looks like you have so React, Flutter. Is the main use mobile apps right now that you're seeing?
Not specifically. I would say like we have this problem, right? Like because you need your phone for it to work because we're using your like device processor to do all the cryptography. So it basically ciphering your proof on your device. Easy as that. We don't have this solution on desktop because that means that you either have to install a piece of software or at very least install the extension. No one loves, extension you're going to use one time or extensions which are required for some other
Yeah.
products. Yeah, so we decided to go with the mobile approach since I gonna bet everyone has a mobile near them even while they're sitting at the computer. So it's a QR code. You scan a QR code with your mobile device, any camera, and instead of downloading the app, it starts the app clip. So it's an app clip for iOS, for Android Instant App. So basically, you're downloading like half a megabyte, only this piece from the app, which is in charge of generating the proof you want. And you will see, the whole flow, zero reclaim branding. Basically, you will just get straight to the website you need to enter, and then you get redirected back to the website if you're on mobile, or it just like gives you a successful, status at the end of the flow and gets you back on the desktop.
Got
What
it.
sort of proof generation time are you looking at on mobile? I think the thing I love about CK is how one of their metrics is like for proof generation is they say, oh, we managed to generate this proof in 2 minutes on a Android phone that's like 20 years old, and we dug up and it was like buried under loads of soil. I really love these metrics that they'll be using. Wait,
Yeah,
what sort of
you're
generation time are
hitting.
you
Oh,
getting?
when you're hitting when it hurts, because it's a it's definitely a huge problem. So it completely depends on your device. So the older the device, we have a certain threshold. So as in your example, we were able to run it in the prehistoric Androids with like I don't know, Android 304 or something like that. Not recommended. It might take up to 5 minutes, and then just goes offline because it considers
Phone
like
just
a
blows up.
timeout. Yeah, usually depends on the size of the proof. So let's say our standard size. I can't even give you like the number of symbols because we're not working with symbols, but we're working with fields, right? Because your name can be very short, your name can be very long, and usually we have like the name, the full name, let's say a phone number and address, full address. A proof of that size would be produced in around 40 to 50 seconds. Yeah, all the proofs are produced generally under 3 minutes if that's something enormously gigantic, and they going timeout in 5 minutes. We're doing a lot on on constantly trying to optimize that. It's really big metric as well. As you mentioned, not a joke. We have a table with the devices and speed of proof producing. Yeah, a lot of discussions about cloud computation, something like that, because technology is there, but how to the greatest problem with that is how to make it safe, completely secure. If we're transferring information there and transferring it from this like platform we don't ultimately control. So it's very theoretical. Basically, we are forced to improve significantly if we encounter any blockages. So each time it becomes more and more incredible. So right now, for instance, we're working on ZK proofing the aggregated data, the one I told you about from Amazon, because you can imagine the list of purchases for half a year for a regular person. It like hundreds lines of text.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. So I think you become more better together in my mind here a little bit. So then from this, so what you're saying here is the reason why then you can do this on chain is because it looks like so I can have my smart contract actually make this call as well, not just the front end. Is that right?
Yeah.
So um I'm not sure how familiar you are, but like, so in Near, we just passed a proposal about something called yielded execution, which allows you to actually essentially have like a Web 2 experience because you can start a transaction and then wait for it to finish on the other side, which normally in crypto that's very difficult because you have to use callbacks because right
Yeah.
the blocks are keep going, right? They don't stop, they don't wait for anybody, so you get kind of stuck here. But this sounds like this is like a really nice match of what Near is able to do at the protocol level to what you guys are trying to do here, because that yielded execution fits right into, hey, let's wait, let's go get what we need from Reclaim, and then come back and finish.
It might be the case. So for those big, huge proofs, right? So a person just completes like actions required from him. Usually, right now, you're absolutely correct. It's instantaneous. So it's like we consider that user like gets the information, then continues into the flow. But
Yeah.
with those enormous proofs, it won't be possible. And to be honest, it won't be needed because user don't have to see the final result. The platform needs to get it. And in this case, based on what you described, it's indeed a pretty perfect match.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
I think yeah, the yield can last up to, I can't remember, it's like thousands of blocks, but it works out to be like about 4 minutes. So that could even adapt for the largest proofs, I think.
That certainly sounds true. Yeah.
Yeah, and how this yield regime came in is related to chain signatures, because with the MPC and chain signatures like main contract, basically the contract was requesting a signature from like off-chain MPC nodes,
Mhm.
and the MPC nodes were obviously taking some time to produce that signature, and to do the waiting, it would have to repeatedly call itself, each call taking like a block. So a lot of the time, when you make a call to this NPC contract to sign a transaction, you would just run out of gas
Yeah.
because the signature wouldn't be provided quick enough. But yeah, with this new yield regime coming in, it looks like the gas cost will be cut down significantly. Maybe like
This run, we're
10,
building,
20%.
stuff to tie it all together. That's great. A lot of great infrastructural solution, a lot of unity among different chains. So that's great to see them not competing for the first time in a really long run. Everyone
Yeah,
sort of finding their own voice, becoming unique in a sort.
yeah, I hope to see more of this unification and working together with
Definitely.
like the chain abstraction narrative, because at hackathons a lot of the time what we're doing is like we're putting out these I can't remember what we call them, but uh like instructing people how they can build on our bounties with
Yeah,
the other chains bounties. So we kind of like want to work with these other protocols so the teams can hit as many different
yeah.
bounties as they want. And that's really
sure.
easy with chain abstraction, because if you want to build uh something on Ethereum, like most of these devs are Solidity devs at hackathons, well, your Web3 hackathons, and you can just build something on EVM and just have a near smart contract or a near account
Yeah.
calling that on Ethereum. And
But
we've obviously been working with like Polygon on ZK Wasm as well. So I love this unification. And
I'm perceiving that more of a, the from the standpoint of acquiring developers outside of the industry, because that's sort of the biggest blocker we have. There are only 32,000 active developers in the space right now, and
Right.
we sort of have to fight, for their attention. And after the bear market, it's definitely the most, seasoned veterans, and they're probably well off already in the space. They're not going to be bought with a few $1,000s in an airdrop or token. So And instead of fighting, like, this whole concept of collecting as many bounties as you can in a single hack, it's sort of unhealthy, and it leads to a lot of abandonware. And I believe when we will have this internal unity, it will allow us to onboard more and more people from the developers outside of the industry. That's super important.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're coming up on the hour, but I wanted to kind of wrap a little bit with some of the stuff that you're probably experiencing. So as you're working on the growth side of it, what has that really been like to start to have some of those conversations? And I got to imagine probably the things that we deal with as developer relations at Near is that it's not even like a selling; it's like almost like an educational process.
Yeah.
Is that what it feels like for you?
Exactly. Yeah, because the price for developer merchant is insane. It's just incredible. I couldn't even place a price tag, right? Like, we're having a lot of those conversations about user activity, which being like just, hardly incentivized, and the numbers are crazy even for regular users. What do you speak about, experienced developers? So it's definitely educational. So you have to spark interest in the people who are already in. So something unusual, something new, or something very useful for them. It's always like that. It's about personal needs. So when I was exploring, how developer in Web3 thinks, it's a very, like, there are not a lot of junior developers, and a lot of people are very, very senior, experienced veterans. They don't pay a lot of attention to the media noise or regular marketing. It's a, it's a well-known thing that it's hard even in Web2.
Right.
Developers are hard to persuade to buy with like marketing tricks. In Web3, it's even harder. So it's definitely about the usage possibilities. And if we're speaking about existing situation right now, and we're definitely looking into external world students, junior middle developers of all kinds of programming languages. So
For sure.
right now it's just so inaccessible. Where you start as a regular dev, it's as inaccessible as for a manager in some cases. So, but we're coming with great infrastructure. We're having a lot of building a lot of backbones, and I feel it's gonna be as easy as working with some well-known, let's say, mobile SDK. Which, even if you never had a prior experience, it's sort of gonna be intuitive on how you're gonna move with it.
Yeah,
no other options, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. Is that something like, I mean, just philosophically from your own experience, I mean, let me just reclaim, but like just thinking about like, is it one of those things where you start to feel like it has to be a chicken and egg thing where like you need some products to be able to point to people and say, look, here's what's possible. But at the same time, like you need someone to build those. So do you feel pressure maybe even internally, this is something that comes up internally of like, do we need to actually start to build some of almost like sample products to kickstart some of that? Because I know like that's happening a little bit in discussion in different blockchains of like how much does the chain itself need to actually build to show, hey, here's what's possible.
I think it's sort of it's a must on a certain level. So it should be accessible, and some products should be built. So you can see that our open, like this self-serve platform is a basically emanation of this thought of making everything sort of streamlined. Because when I'm trying to explain the TLS, and like we don't need an API, and you can gather any sensitive data but absolutely securely, and we don't see it, how all of that works. Equally confusing both for Web3 and Web2 developers, because it's just like sort of a disruption. It's like a new way to do an old thing. So everyone is very informed about APIs. They're like Zapier, and like every developer knows that he can go there and get something he needs. Pretty intuitive. It's sort of like a hard question. I feel we all are under pressured with that, because it's easy to say, hey, it's industry, right? Like what I can do. I'm just like building this small product, some decentralized exchange, and there are all those networks. They should do all the effort, but in reality, it depends on product. If you're building something, make it accessible.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's something that I think a lot about, of just even not just for Near, but in general, of like the problem that I have when I talk to devs at any level, just even casually, just been like, hey, look, here's what they ask what's going on in crypto. It's not being able to always point to something that's tangible, and then trying to also like relay, like we just said, like how do I get this message across of this different paradigm? Because I'll tell you, like this, I now that I get exactly what you guys are doing, I'm like, oh, I need to build this into my product that I'm working on. But at first, it's a little bit of like a hard part of like where I have experience in Web 2. I come from a big enterprise background. So I first think of like giant APIs, right? That's the first thing that comes to mind. And then I think of like, okay, now I've been working Web 3 for a few years. And now I start thinking about a little bit more of like, again, like the privacy stuff. What can I actually pull? How am I going to actually get it? You know, through whatever. So now to get to the point where like you guys are, which is this really nice intersection that is solving kind of, I guess, both sides of the coin here. Like what do you need to actually do? I got to imagine it just like that's going to be the breakthrough for you guys, right? Of like from just a marketing and sales standpoint of like, can we get this message across?
Yeah, messaging is a big topic, internal topic as well. We're slowly getting there. I feel like every time my pitch becoming shorter and shorter. So
yeah.
Slowly working it out.
Challenge for everybody, for sure. Sure. Yeah, awesome. And any other questions before we let Roman go?
No questions for me. I think I'm just excited to try it out, to be honest. But I really like what you touched on, Joe, about whether when sometimes it's difficult to onboard developers and empower them to build. Why don't we all just build the product ourselves?
Yeah,
because we're too technical, you know, like people who develop something, they tend to think that like I just build it and people will understand what it's about and they will understand how genius it is and they will just pick up from there. But to be honest, it's not like that. No one cares if you can't grab their attention. So we're sort of seeing that, I feel, with a lot of Web3 products. So if you take some wallets from old like previous generations, like 2 generations ago, they're very utilitarian. They're very like simple, not very beautiful, a little clunky. UX UI is very questionable sometimes. If you'll take like some wallets from the last bear market, there was a few, let's say Zerion, very cool stuff like web part. It's like all very fast and designs are slick. So it's a different side of the coin when we speak about the developer acquisition. It's about customer acquisition. So that's where it started, I feel, for the industry.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. You run the risk of like, there's too many big brains in the room, and there's no one there to be like, hey, look,
it's
the
too complex.
regular Joes need to be able to actually use this too. You don't want to outsmart yourself.
Good thing to do. Like it's my personal, advice for all the developers who want to, double check them. Just, message your mom, message your like school friends, those people who are not in crypto. Ask them, hey, can you I was doing that experiment in Rarible when we were optimizing the entry flow. I asked like 10 people to create a MetaMask account to download. Like I was just dropping them the landing page and telling, hey, can you install the app and like make an account inside it? I got the benchmarks for timing. I got all the red flags in terms of UX, UI, what was difficult, what was confusing, and it's very straightforward. So you will have a lot of external feedback if you just share stuff with people. And in Web3, everyone is so open, and it's always so easy to find someone to discuss even very, very complex topic, which is a blessing for the industry.
For sure. No, definitely. Well, I really appreciate you taking this time. This is I learned a lot. This is really exciting to see. It's really cool too. That I think from a DevHub standpoint, something that we helped put some funding towards. You guys being able to actually come and build here on Near, and really looking forward to seeing the continued updates because there's a lot of power in this, and I hope that people start to really recognize what they're capable of.
We're hoping to give that back to the community, to the builders. So that's why I'm here. Please join the Reclaim Telegram chat to discuss your ideas or any blockers. And we also have grants for near based applications, creator grants up to 10K for with different milestones. So feel free to participate. Thanks.
That's
I
awesome.
might need to take a look at that.
Very cool. Very cool. Well,
Thank
Roman,
you
thank
so
you
much.
again. And yeah,
Thank you,
we'll
guys.
look forward to having you on later this year. Maybe we can do a follow up.
Absolutely. Yeah, would be a pleasure. See
Sounds
ya.
great.
Thank you,
Take
everyone.
care. Take
See ya.
care. All right. Well, what do you think, Owen? I think that was pretty interesting to learn about, because it was not totally what I expected. It was actually probably better than I expected.
Yeah, I think it was great because, like I said, we've been looking at building with Reclaim. So I've sort of been using this live somewhat selfishly, so I
Yeah,
could
that's what we're here for.
learn about it for my own benefit as well. So it's been
Listen.
very productive for me.
Right. I did a podcast for almost 2 years for that reason, right? Just so you could learn about everything that's going on, right? You have the guests, you get to ask the questions you want. That's the best. No, it's exciting. This is the stuff that it's a nice success story, I think, too, of like, look, you can come and do stuff. There is funding on Near available. You can leverage it, and they now have a product that anybody could use, and there's a lot of good stuff hopefully coming from that.
I think it's interesting that DevHub gave them a grant, and now they're also giving out their own grants for people who could build on Near as well. And
Yeah,
you see a lot of
go ahead.
there's a lot of products that sort of give back. Like I know Mintbase in the past have done a lot of grants, and Metapool as well. There's a lot of examples. So I think uh, like Roman was saying at the end, with Web3, like anyone's open to talk, and a lot of the time, people are loving to give back. Really,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the pay it forward nature of it is exciting to see, and again, like they certainly have an uphill battle, but I mean, it's going to be one that's a good one to watch, because there's so many benefits, like from what you're trying to build to even what I'm trying to build on the side with Shard Dog. Like, it just all comes together, and so I think it's hopefully going to be useful for a lot of people. Next, so we do have another exciting episode next week, and next week we're bringing on the infrastructure committee from Near, and that one is going to be really interesting, because I don't think people realize, again, how some of this infrastructure in Web3 is really being managed, not just on Near, but I think a lot of different blockchains are doing something kind of similar. But on Near, we're really trying to decentralize as best as possible. Uh, what are your thoughts around the infrastructure committee and how that's being structured?
well, I think it's an interesting one. There's a lot of committees being stood up more recently to access funding for specific verticals, and I quite like how it's been structured. Like if you look at who's on the infrastructure committee, you have some giga brains on there. So whoever's joining us next week, I'm sure they're going to shed a lot of insight of how it's all working.
Yeah, I mean, it should be a really good episode. Anyone who's interested in just again how this all goes together, it's guaranteed to be some deep diving into some, just not even just to the technicalities of how the blockchain works, but just like the fundamentals of how do you actually get some of this stuff deployed, how do you get this stuff built, who's doing the work around all of this. When in Web 2, it's easy to just not even think about it, because it's these big corporations. A lot of the time they're just doing all this work. In Web3, it's literally sometimes like a person over the weekend, like one or two people trying to put stuff together to get infrastructure stood up for certain things. And there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on. It's growing rapidly, especially here on Near, with the amount of transactions and users each day. It should be a good episode. I do want to end with a couple notes. If you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, please do so. Every week we release from DevHub all the news you could possibly need as a developer in this ecosystem, from what's happening with tooling to different committees, upcoming events, things like that. We have our bounty booster. I've talked about 100 times on these episodes. There's a link down below. Check out the bounty booster. If you're going to a hackathon and you're integrating near, you can actually double your prize up to $5,000. So it's worth checking out. And as always, make sure you're subscribing to all our socials. We're on Twitter, we're on TikTok, we're on YouTube, Instagram, all the things. You can get the highlights of all the episodes everywhere. And we're going to keep pushing with that. Want to end us on anything, Owen? I thought this was a great episode.
It's just another banger, to be honest. It's they're all the same. They're all great from the ones I've been on, and I'm looking forward to participating and helping you run the show.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. I'm excited to have another person to bounce some of the stuff off with. So it doesn't have to just be me all the time, which is great. So I appreciate you and your time, and we appreciate Reclaim coming on. And we will see everyone next week, same time as always on Thursday at 5 p.m. UTC, and we'll have the infrastructure committee next time. Till then, see you later.
Goodbye.